This is Spatium Urbis, which means space city in Latin. This is a proof of concept for humans to live outside of Earth permanently, so that even if Earth ceases to exist, humans can still live in this universe. It would not need a sun or a star nearby for its existence. It could also be moved around in space so it can find more conducive places if its current location becomes unfavorable. The spacecraft will be placed in the asteroid Ceres. This is because Ceres is the largest asteroid in the asteroid belt. Because of its size, it is spherical in shape and will allow the settlement to orbit it. Ceres is also an asteroid about which we know the most. 30% of its crust is water. This poses a great advantage in opening up a secondary source of water for the settlement. It is a carbonaceous C-type asteroid, which contains useful minerals such as carbon, silicates, and clay. And one of the closer asteroids is the M-type 911 Agamemnon. This contains metals. As a result, most elements could be found on these two asteroids alone. It is required that the settlement is not too far from Earth, and Ceres is reasonably close, averaging around 2.2 astronomical units. The settlement will be built in low Earth orbit, since that way we can ferry materials to build it very quickly. We would need to send multiple crafts to transport all of the material. For this, the standard space shuttle would be unsuitable. Some of the major reasons are that standard space shuttles are prone to huge dangers during re-entry and takeoff. They are imprecise, as there is immense complicated calculations based on a wide range of parameters. They are also expensive due to the huge amount of fuel and recycling costs needed before each launch. To overcome these, we will use a skyhook system. Skyhook works by having at one end a huge counterweight, placed at a height of around 600 kilometers above the surface of Earth. The weight is tied to a long rope made of Kevlar. At the other end of the rope is a grabber. The grabber is at a height of 10 kilometers off the surface of the Earth. Therefore, the shuttle will have to reach an altitude of 10 kilometers to meet the grabber. The grabber will be rotating with the shuttle and the counterweight around the counterweight and would fling it into low Earth orbit. In this method, the propelling will be done by centrifugal force using the momentum of the craft itself. This would eliminate the large masses of fuel normally required. To complete the construction in a reasonable time, each cargo plane would need to carry a load of around 300 tons. The aircraft will therefore be modeled on the largest aircraft ever made, the Antonov AN-225. To increase the weight carried, delta wings with the tailprop configuration will be used as shown. To increase the velocity and service ceiling of the craft, the plane will be equipped with scramjet engines. As a result, the aircraft would need to take off from a pneumatic rail, propelling it to around Mach 1. However, the aircraft could land at any commercial airstrip. The craft would not need to be multi-stage like the space shuttles, and therefore it would be much cheaper and not need the extra thrusters and fuel. This method would make the building process much greener with much less waste and much less use of fuel. It would also drastically reduce costs as well as making it faster. The main material for building the outer surface of the superstructure will be composite armor. Cylindrical structures made of composite armor will be bound together by graphene. Graphene has an extremely strong tensile strength. When taut, it can support up to 130 megapascals of pressure. Graphene is also relatively light compared to steel, with a density of only 900 kilograms per meter cube. A structure of cylinders bound together can withstand immense pressure compared to a flat sheet. An example of this is the use of cylinders in large submarines as hulls. This makes it perfect as a support system. Energy will predominantly be produced by a fusion reactor. The reactor would use deuterium and helium-3 as raw material. These two elements will be initially taken into the settlement. Later, they'll be procured in the following two ways. During solar winds, large deposits of helium-3 move to stellar objects. If this stellar object does not have a magnetosphere or ozone layer, this is the case with Ceres. Helium-3 gets deposited on its surface. This means we can sift the surface of Ceres for helium-3. Deuterium is found in normal water, and we can separate it out by using the kinetic isotopic effect. Helium-3 and deuterium will become a plasma after being superheated by using electromagnetic confinement to pressurize it. This hot fusion plasma will then travel around the torus shape. It will be vital that the torus does not come into contact with the plasma, as the plasma is over 10,000 degrees Celsius. Around the container, there will be magnets. The powerful electromagnets would apply equal pressure on all sides of the curved surface of the plasma stream to keep it suspended in the center of the torus. The inner surface of the torus will be made of lithium. When a neutron from a fusion reaction is released and it hits the wall of the torus, it actually produces tritium, and we can then reuse this in the reactor. Tritium recycling will be crucial for the continued use of this reactor. The energy produced by the reactor will be enough to sustain the entire settlement's energy requirement of heat, light, and electricity, and therefore there will be no need for the vicinity of a star for the survival of the settlement. Oxygen for the settlement will be produced by the thermal decomposition of carbon dioxide by using heat from the fusion. Food will be produced by the principle of conserving almost the entire biomass of the settlement. Meat-like food will be made by channelizing the entire organic waste through large pipes. These pipes will be directed to the mycoprotein manufacturing area of the settlement, which will contain large vats containing the fungus Fusarium venetatum. These produce mycoproteins, which we can then make into meat. Plant-based food will be produced by hydroponics. In this environment, the mind will be the biggest resource. The success of the settlement will rely on how well each mind in the settlement is nurtured. Education would be the process by which every mind, thought, idea of the kids will be given attention. There would be kids with special needs or on the autism spectrum. The interest that they display would sometimes be unexpected and unknown. Plans to accommodate these should then be made. Their differently orientated thoughts and interest would be encouraged with special care so that new ideas from their perspective can be brought and recorded into the knowledge pool. Thoughts of children will be recorded in detail to analyze so that they can be explored in the following years as a learning repository. The utmost importance in the education system would be making every individual feel valuable in the settlement. The uninfluenced minds of children would be nurtured as an asset to bring about new, unimagined ideas. The requirements and problems of the settlement will be discussed with the children from the very beginning of their education, so that they can think in a direction and come up with their own ideas. In this process, the settlement would also make kids understand how they have been valuable to the system, individually, by contributing their own unique thoughts. The settlement would be able to move in space very quickly over vast distances by pushing it with light through the system of a light sail. The craft would be fixed with a sail made of graphene with a silver coating on top. A light ray, powered by a detached module, would shine at the sail on the settlement, pushing it all forward. The light ray can propel the craft at 1 to 10% the speed of light. Since there is no resistance to the craft, the shuttle would not slow down. If we want to change the direction or slow it down, one extra laser module would incident a light beam at an angle to the sail. This would change the direction in the way that we want. This way, the settlement can be moved in the galaxy in search of a better location if its current one becomes unfavorable. This mission, if successful, would be the first step in establishing the scope for humans to live in space without the reliance on Earth and our known environment. It can start with the vicinity of Earth, but it would be able to travel beyond.